Ladies and gentlemen, you walking around thinking you lost somebody. Baby, you didn't lose nobody. What happened is he lost you. And I need you to understand just what that means. You see, when a real woman shows up in a man's life, she don't just bring beauty. She brings peace. She brings support. She brings power. And when a man fumbles that, that's not your loss. It's a lesson he gonna learn for the rest of his life. Doesn't mean losing them. He lost you. That's the truth, whether you feel it right now or not. See, when something ends, our first instinct is to look inward and blame ourselves. We start rewinding every moment, every conversation, every little thing we think we could have done differently. But the reality is, some people just aren't built to handle a real one. Some people don't know how to hold on to something valuable because they've never been taught how to appreciate it in the first place. You were not just there for the good times. You showed up on the hard days. You held him down when life got heavy. You encouraged him when he doubted himself. You stayed loyal when it would have been easier to walk away. And in all that, somehow you started thinking you needed him more than he needed you. That's where the illusion crept in. That's where the self-doubt started whispering lies in your ear. Because love doesn't fail when it's real. People fail to recognize what they've been given. He didn't walk away from you because you lacked something. He walked away because he couldn't step up. There's a difference. And until you see that, you'll carry the weight of a decision that wasn't even yours. Sometimes a man loses a woman not because she was too much, but because she was everything and he wasn't ready to receive that kind of power. You were a mirror that reflected his potential, his flaws, his greatness, and that scared him. So instead of rising up, he backed away. And that ain't on you. You gave your heart, your time, your energy. You listened when he didn't even have the words. You loved him past his pain, through his confusion, and beyond his silence. That's not a loss on your record. That's strength on your soul. And the sad part is, he won't realize what he had until he tries to replace it and comes up empty. Because women like you don't come around twice. You're not recycled. You're not duplicated. You're one of one. When someone walks out of your life after you gave them your best, it's easy to think you lost. But real loss is walking away from a woman who loved you completely, who supported your dreams, who stood in your corner without conditions. That's the kind of loss a man feels in his bones. That's the kind of regret that hits late at night, long after the door is closed. So no, you didn't lose him. He lost you, and not just you, the experience of being loved, without question. The experience of having someone who truly saw him. He lost the safe space you created, the comfort of your presence, the strength of your belief in him. He lost the future he could have had with someone rare. He lost the one person who stayed when everyone else gave up. He lost a woman who would have gone to war for him because she finally realized she shouldn't have to fight to be seen. A real woman brings peace, support, and power. She's not just a pretty face or someone to pass the time with. She's a force. When she steps into a man's life, everything starts to shift. The chaos he's used to, the stress he's always carrying, the noise in his mind, all of that starts to calm down. Not because she fixed him, but because her presence is steady. A real woman knows how to bring peace without even saying a word. Her energy speaks louder than her voice. She becomes a safe place, a soft landing, a moment of silence in a world full of noise. Peace. Doesn't mean she never gets upset. Doesn't mean she always agrees or stays quiet to keep the peace. No, it means she knows how to handle conflict without creating damage. She knows how to speak the truth with love. She knows how to give space when needed and closeness when it matters most. That's a rare kind of peace, and not everyone knows what to do with it when they get it. Some men are addicted to drama. Some are so used to chaos they confuse peace with boredom. But make no mistake, a real woman's peace is powerful. It's the kind of calm that gives a man space to grow. But it's not just peace. She brings support. And I'm not talking about just cheering from the sidelines. I'm talking about real hands-on, ride or die, let's build together kind of support. She sees his vision even when it's still blurry. She reminds him of who he is when the world tries to break him down. She believes in him when he stops believing in himself. That kind of support doesn't come from someone who's just passing time. It comes from a woman who knows her own strength and uses it to uplift the person she loves. She doesn't try to control, she empowers. She doesn't compete, she complements. And when she chooses to stand beside a man, he becomes stronger just by having her near. And then there's power. Real power, the kind that doesn't need to be loud to be felt. She walks in a room and everything shifts, not because she demands attention, but because her spirit is undeniable. A real woman knows who she is. She's done the work, felt the pain, and still chose to love again. Her power comes from her experience, from the way she loves, from the way she leads with her heart, but keeps her standards high. She can take care of herself, but she chooses to pour into someone else. And that's strength, that's power, that's a gift. When a man has a real woman by his side, he gets more than a partner. He gets peace that heals his soul, support that builds his dreams, and power that makes him better. She doesn't come in to complete him. She comes in to elevate him. And that kind of presence is something most don't realize they needed until it's gone. He didn't recognize your value until it was gone. That's how it usually goes. People often don't appreciate gold when they're holding it in their hands. They think it'll always be there. They think they have time. They take your kindness for granted, your love as routine, and your loyalty as a given. Day after day, you showed up, you were consistent, you gave your best. But he got too used to it. He thought your patience meant he didn't have to change. He thought your forgiveness was unlimited. He mistook your strength for silence and your grace for weakness. You see, when someone is always there, it's easy to stop seeing them. That's what happened. You were the one holding things together, emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. You held space for him when he was lost. You poured into him when he was empty. You carried the weight of the relationship without complaining, because that's the kind of heart you have. But even a strong heart gets tired when it's never poured back into. Even the most patient soul has a limit. Sad part is, he didn't realize what he had in you until you were no longer there to call, to comfort, to care. That's when it hit him. That's when the silence got louder. That's when the peace you used to bring turned into noise he couldn't quiet. That's when the things he once overlooked became the very things he started craving. Your voice, your laughter, your understanding, your way of making him feel like he mattered, even when he didn't earn it. By the time he saw it, it was already too late. Because value isn't always obvious when you're surrounded by it. People get spoiled by consistency. They start assuming that your goodness is just part of the background until you remove it, until you take your energy back, until the love that once held him together is no longer available to rescue him from himself. And now he's out there trying to find what he gave up, looking for you in places and people who can't measure up, trying to recreate moments that only existed because you were in them. That's when reality sets in. That's when he starts realizing that he wasn't just losing a relationship, he was losing a woman who knew how to love deeply, speak life, and give without keeping score. It wasn't that you weren't enough, it was that he wasn't ready to receive what you had to offer. He hadn't grown enough to see that a real one doesn't come around often. And now he's living with the echo of what used to be, chasing after a presence that can't be replaced. Because once you experience a love that deep, a heart that loyal, a spirit that's strong, you don't forget it. You miss it in the quiet moments. You feel it in the spaces where her light used to shine. You were a blessing he wasn't ready for. That's the truth a lot of people don't want to face. See, it's not that you weren't enough. It's that your presence required a level of maturity he hadn't reached. Your love required a level of responsibility he wasn't willing to carry. You came into his life with intention. You weren't there to play games, waste time, or fill a void. You were there to build something real, to grow together, to create a partnership rooted in truth and purpose. But he wasn't standing on that same foundation. He was still figuring himself out, still caught up in his own patterns, still searching for something outside of himself that he thought would fix what was broken inside. When a blessing shows up before someone is ready, they'll often mishandle it. They'll doubt it, question it, or even sabotage it, not because you did anything wrong, but because deep down they feel unworthy. They don't know how to receive what they don't believe they deserve. That's what happened with you. You showed up as light, and he didn't know what to do with it. You loved him with depth, and he couldn't match it. You gave without conditions. And it scared him, because when someone's used to struggle, peace feels unfamiliar. When someone's used to being let down, real love feels suspicious. You brought consistency, honesty, strength, and loyalty. You were willing to grow through the hard parts. You didn't run at the first sign of difficulty. You stayed when it made more sense to leave. That's not ordinary, that's a blessing. Not everyone comes with that kind of heart. Not everyone is capable of giving that kind of love. But he didn't see it for what it was. Maybe he thought he had time. Maybe he thought you'd always be there. Or maybe he didn't think deep enough at all. Because a man who truly sees the gift in a woman like you doesn't take chances. He protects it. He invests in it. He grows with it. But he was still operating from a mindset that couldn't support the kind of relationship you were ready to build. He hadn't healed enough to hold you properly. He hadn't developed the vision to see how rare you were. So he let it slip through his fingers, not because he didn't care, but because he lacked the tools to nurture what he had. He thought it was just love. He didn't realize it was purpose. He thought it was just companionship. He didn't realize it was alignment. And now he's left with memories of a connection that went deeper than words. Timing matters. Readiness matters. And even though you came into his life with everything he didn't know he needed, he couldn't rise to meet you there. You weren't asking for perfection. You were asking for effort, intention, and truth. But effort can't be faked, and truth can't be forced. So even though you were the answer to a prayer he hadn't even prayed yet, he still wasn't in a place to receive you fully. You grow, you glow, and you level up after the pain. That's what happens when a woman decides she's done shrinking to fit into places that were never meant to hold her. That kind of transformation doesn't come easy. It comes after the tears, after the disappointment, after the long nights of wondering why something that felt so real had to fall apart. But there's something powerful that happens in that breaking point. That's where the shift begins. That's where she starts remembering who she is. Pain has a way of pulling out strength you didn't know you had. You go through heartache thinking it's going to destroy you, but instead it refines you. You start to see things clearly. You start to recognize your worth again. You stop accepting half effort, half love, and half truths. You begin to rebuild, not for him, not to prove anything to anybody else, but for you. Because there's a moment when you finally realize you were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. And as that healing begins, so does the glow up. But this glow isn't about looks. It's energy. It's peace in your spirit. It's clarity in your mind. It's walking in the rooms with confidence, not because you're trying to be seen, but because you finally see yourself. That glow comes from doing the inner work, from choosing your peace over your pride, from choosing your future over your past, from letting go of what broke you and reaching for what builds you. And then the level up begins. Not just in the way you carry yourself, but in your standards, in the way you love yourself, in what you allow and what you no longer tolerate. You stop chasing people who can't meet you where you are. You stop begging for the bare minimum. You stop explaining your worth to people who were never ready for the kind of love you bring. You've leveled up in your mindset, in your circle, and your goals. Your whole life starts to elevate because now you're moving from a place of wholeness, not hurt. You start setting boundaries, not walls. You speak your truth without fear. You embrace your softness without letting it be taken for weakness. You love differently, not less, but wiser. You still give, but now it's the people who pour back. You still care, but not at the expense of your own well-being. That kind of level up doesn't come with noise, it comes with peace. It doesn't come from revenge, it comes from release. And while they might see the glow, they won't see the pain it took to get there. They won't see the strength it took to walk away from what wasn't serving you. They won't see the work you did behind closed doors, the prayers you whispered, the healing you had to do on your own. But that's okay, because you didn't grow, glow, and level up for anyone else. You did it because you finally chose you. You are the woman he'll never find again. That's not ego talking, that's truth. Because it's something about the way you love, the way you show up, the way you give your heart that isn't easy to come by. You weren't just present. You were all in. You weren't just there for the good times. You stood tall in the storms. You didn't just offer love, you offered understanding, patience, loyalty, and depth. That kind of love doesn't grow on trees, and it doesn't wait around forever. There's a difference between someone who dates you and someone who experiences you. When he had you, he was experiencing something sacred, something real, something that came from your soul. You made him feel seen. You reminded him of his greatness, even when he was stuck in doubt. You created a space that felt like home, safe, warm, and steady. And now that it's gone, that absence is loud. That silence is sharp. Because the kind of love you gave can't be replaced. It can't be copied. It was tailor-made straight from your heart. When a man loses a woman like you, he doesn't just lose a partner, he loses peace, direction, and the one person who was willing to see the best in him when he couldn't even see it himself. He can try to move on. He can try to distract himself. He can fill his life with noise, with people, with temporary thrills, but at the end of the day, none of it hits the same. None of it reaches his soul the way you did, because it wasn't about what you looked like or what you gave him. It was about who you were and how you loved. You can't find that kind of energy in just anyone. It's not something people stumble upon every day. It's rare. It's divine. And the moment you walked away, that chapter closed. Not out of bitterness, not out of revenge, but because you finally knew your value. You finally saw that you were showing up in a space where you were being taken for granted. And the minute you chose yourself, you became unforgettable. Not because of what you said or did, but because of what he'll never feel again. He'll search, maybe not out loud, maybe not even right away, but deep down, he'll look for pieces of you in every woman he meets. He'll compare smiles, conversations, kindness, and connection. He'll try to find your vibe in other faces, but it won't be there because there's only one you. And he had that. He lived it. He lost it. And that reality doesn't fade with time. It grows louder. You didn't just walk through his life, you impacted it. You left footprints on his soul. You were the one who made him believe in love at a deeper level, even if he couldn't handle it at the time. And no matter how far he goes, how many people he meets, or how much time passes, he'll always remember the woman who gave him everything before he even realized what he had.